Hi guys, Cinematic Recapped here. Before we start, warning. Spoilers ahead. Today, I'm gonna explain an American mystery and thriller movie with an interesting plot, called The Pale Blue Eye. In 1830, a retired alcoholic detective named Augustus Landor is asked by the military to investigate the mysterious death of Cadet Leroy Fry at the United States Military Academy at West Point, New York. At that moment, Landor is a widower who lives alone since his daughter Matilda ran away several years earlier. Soon, Academy physician Daniel Marquis informs Landor that Fry had been hanged and his heart was removed from his chest. After that, Landor questions another cadet who first discovered Fry's body last night. The cadet says that he heard the sound of an animal caught in a trap and intended to help it, but he found Fry's body instead. Another strange thing is that Fry's feet were touching the ground. As Landor examines the corpse, he discovers marks on Fry's neck and fingers indicating that he did not hang himself, but was murdered. He also finds a small fragment of a note clutched tightly in Fry's hand. Sometime later, another cadet named Edgar Allan Poe approaches Landor and expresses interest in the murder case. For some reason, Poe claims that the murderer is a poet. Afterwards, Landor asks the other cadet who was detailed to guard Fry's body at the hospital last night. The cadet says that nothing happened until an unidentified officer suddenly arrived at 2:30 a.m. to take over guard duty. However, he did not recognize the officer's face because of the darkness. At night, Landor comes to his regular bar and accidentally meets Poe there. Poe explains the reasons for his statement earlier by stating that he is a poet as well, so he knows the way of thinking of a poet. The next morning, the colonel receives news that a cow and a sheep have been murdered and mutilated in the area with their hearts removed. After that, Landor secretly enlists Poe's help deciphering the small fragment note from Fry's hand. Shortly after that, Poe comes to Landor's house with his analysis and says that it was a personal note written by the murderer to draw Fry from his barracks to a secret meeting. The following day, Landor comes to the morgue looking for another clue. After seeing a bucket of ice, he believes that the murderer must preserve the stolen hearts using ice cubes. He then goes to a nearby ice house and discovers a secret basement, where he encounters a ritual symbol. After receiving a note from Landor, Poe joins him to the ice house, and they deduce that the murder could be linked to black magic rituals. To be sure, they ask Landor's friend who is a professor of ritual symbols. The professor believes that the symbol is a magic circle for an immortality rite that requires the hearts of unclean animals, the hearts of unbaptized children, and the hearts of hanged men. Because of this, Landor asks Poe to discreetly infiltrate the cadets and see if he could discover which of them may have a connection to the occult. Long story short, Poe becomes acquainted with Artemis Marquis, the son of Daniel Marquis. In the evening, he gathers with the other cadets, and they have a brief talk about Fry's death. One of the cadets named Ballinger believes that Fry hanged himself in despair over being jilted by Artemis' little sister Lee. However, Artemis counters by stating that Ballinger was closer to Fry than anyone else. Later, Poe is caught by the colonel for wandering outside, so he is ordered to return to the barracks as soon as possible. In the meantime, Landor awakens from his sleep and hallucinates his daughter in front of him. Unable to hold back his sadness, he can only cry remembering Matilda's favorite dress. After attending Fry's funeral, Fry's mother gives Landor her son's diary hoping it will be of use to Landor in solving the case. However, the diary is very strange as it only contains symbols that no one can understand. Later that night, Poe and the other cadets are invited to the Marquis house. Fascinated, Poe uses the opportunity to charm Lee by reciting his romantic poems. While they are on a date the next day, Lee suddenly collapses due to her unknown illness. Fortunately, she manages to recover and continue their date. After walking Lee home at night, Poe is suddenly attacked by Ballinger who tells him to stay away from Lee, showing that he is jealous of him. Luckily, Landor comes at the right time and quickly stops the fight. The following morning, the colonel informs Landor that Ballinger went missing. The group is mobilized to conduct a search and eventually finds Ballinger hanged with his heart removed. Daniel argues that the murder was performed by different hands because Ballinger's dissection was not as clean as Fry's. As they still cannot find the murderer, the colonel becomes frustrated and suspects Poe of being the murderer because of his fight with Ballinger last night. The colonel also reveals the fact that Poe had been involved in a fight with Fry before he died. Poe admits to his altercation with Fry, but he remains adamant that he was not the killer. One day, Landor and Poe are invited to the Marquis house to mourn Ballinger's death. While the others gather to watch Lee play the piano, Landor secretly searches the house for clues. He eventually finds an old officer's uniform whose bars were missing, exactly the same as the cadet had described earlier. Shortly after that, the colonel arrives at Marquis' house and informs them that another cadet named Stoddard, who was a colleague of the two victims, suddenly disappears from the barracks. Landor presumes that Stoddard ran away because he believed that he was next in line to be killed. Landor then comes to see the professor and asks about who created the black magic rituals. The professor explains that a man named Henri Leclerc created it and then shows the ritual book with a photo of him. Landor is shocked to know this because he saw the photo of Henri Leclerc in Marquis' house. He quickly confronts Daniel, who finally admits that he had resorted to black magic to cure Lee of her seizures. He was forced to do it because his daughter initially seemed to be getting better. Meanwhile, Poe is increasingly enchanted by Lee and volunteers to do whatever she wants. However, he is drugged and later wakes up in the ice house to find that Artemis and Lee are about to cut out his heart, in accordance with the ritual to cure Lee. Thankfully, Landor manages to arrive in time to rescue Poe, but their fight causes the building to catch fire, leaving Lee and Artemis dead. As a result of the incident, Poe is rushed to the hospital, and the military finally thanks Landor for his service as the case has now been solved. Several days later, Poe, who is now recovering from his near-death experience, suddenly comes to Landor's house. He notices that the handwriting on the note fragment found in Fry's hand matches Landor's writing in the note given to him some time ago. Collating all the information that he has gathered, Poe eventually concludes that Landor was in fact the murderer of the cadets. It all started 2 years previously when Matilda was raped by Fry, Ballinger, and Stoddard after attending her first ball. Traumatized by the horrific experience, she killed herself by jumping off a cliff the next day. Landor did not disclose this to anyone, but pretended that she had run away. Distraught, he set out to avenge his daughter. Although Matilda was unable to identify the rapists, she had brought a chain bearing the initials LF from one of the cadets, which eventually led Landor to Fry. One night, Landor left a note for the cadet, luring him to a lonely spot before hanging him. However, a patrol cadet happened to walk by, so Landor was forced to leave the body there. Coincidentally, Lee and Artemis later stole Fry's heart for their ritual, thus covering up Landor's crime magnificently, while Artemis and Lee will forever go down as murderers. When Landor began investigating his own crime and stopped looking for the remaining rapists, he slowly learned that Ballinger was the second rapist after solving the riddle of Fry's diary. He then killed Ballinger and purposely mutilated his corpse to make it appear that the cadet had been murdered by the same murderer who had desecrated Fry's body. With all of these revelations, Poe tells Landor that he has 2 notes with handwriting samples that can link Landor directly to the murders. Landor leaves his fate to Poe, who appeared heartbroken to see Lee die. Surprisingly, Poe ends up burning the notes and saying goodbye before leaving the house. Landor is later seen standing on the cliff, where his daughter leapt to her death. He then lets her hair ribbon float away in the wind, saying "Rest my love." Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for